pay for losing it when my mother-in-law sold my grandma's heirloom and my husband took the cash? My name is Mara. I'm 29 and I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, in the kind of little old house where every floorboard has an opinion. I work as a permit technician for the city. This means I spend most of my day helping people figure out what they legally can and cannot do to their homes. Ironically, I was married to Blake, a man who thought his mother could do whatever she wanted in ours. I am the person who labels leftovers with painter's tape, keeps a snow shovel by the back door even in April, and believed for way too long that being easygoing made me a good wife. Blake and I bought the house 2 years after we got married. It was a small 1950s place with narrow stairs, a detached garage off the alley, radiators that clanked like old men clearing their throats, and a basement that was partly a laundry room and partly a concrete cave. It was not the sort of house anyone would put in a magazine, but the day we got the keys I cried in the kitchen because it was ours. Or I thought it was ours. I had grown up moving between rentals with my mom. We lived in duplexes, garden-level apartments, and one place above a barber shop where the whole building smelled like talcum powder and old coffee. So when I put my savings toward the down payment, I did not just feel like I was buying walls and a roof. I felt like I was buying the right to unpack without wondering how long I got to stay. Blake contributed too, partly from his job in logistics and partly from a small amount his dad left him when he passed. We were proud in the practical Midwestern way. This meant we spent our weekends at a local hardware store comparing cabinet hinges and pretending the previous owner's wallpaper was not that bad. I painted the kitchen cabinets myself over 3 weekends. Blake installed shelves in the garage. I turned the spare bedroom into my sewing and craft room, with a thrifted desk, fabric bins stacked by color, and my grandmother's sewing machine under the window. The machine was a beige metal vintage model, heavy enough to hurt your leg if you bumped it. It was not worth much to anyone else, but my grandma had taught me to hem jeans on it when I was 12, guiding my hands and saying, "Slow is smooth, baby. Smooth gets it done." Elaine never liked that room. Elaine was Blake's mother. She was 61 and polished in the way some women are when they want you to know they are still in charge. Her hair was always sprayed into place. Her lipstick never smudged. She wore soft cardigans and said things like, "I am only trying to help," in a tone that made help sound like a court order. First I tried with her. I really did. She had lost her husband, and Blake was her only child. She lived alone in a condo in Roseville and acted like silence was a personal attack. I invited her to Sunday dinners. I sent her pictures when Blake fixed something around the house. I let her bring pies even when I had already made dessert. But Elaine treated our house like a second branch of her son's life, and me like a tenant with opinions. She dropped by without calling. She put groceries in my fridge, then complained that I did not use them fast enough. She rearranged my spice cabinet because, according to her, no adult keeps cumin above the stove. Once I came home and found her folding our laundry in the basement, including my underwear, while Blake stood there saying she was just being nice. I told him it bothered me. He kissed my forehead and said, "She is lonely. She does not mean anything by it." That was Blake's excuse for everything. She does not mean anything by it. As if poor behavior only counted when someone filled out an intention form first. The garage sale happened on a Saturday in April. It was one of those Minnesota spring days where the sun lies to you and the alley is still packed with dirty slush. I was supposed to be at a work training until 4, learning updates to residential permit software in a windowless conference room with burnt coffee. Halfway through, a severe headache started behind my right eye. I drove home early, squinting through traffic, thinking about a pain reliever and the leftover wild rice soup in the fridge. When I turned onto our block, I saw the folding tables first. They were lined up in the driveway. They were the cheap white ones we used for Thanksgiving overflow. Masking tape price tags fluttered in the wind. A couple I did not recognize was looking through a box of my craft supplies. A man in a hoodie held one of my lamps. Elaine stood near the garage wearing a fanny pack stuffed with cash, smiling like she was hosting a charity fundraiser. Blake stood beside her with our metal cash box in his hands. For a second I thought I had pulled up to the wrong house. That is how strange it felt. My brain rejected the scene before my body could. Then I saw my yellow throw blanket on a table. My good mixing bowl. 2 lamps from the guest room. A stack of fabric squares tied with twine. The little ceramic tray I kept by the kitchen sink for my rings. I got out of the car slowly. Elaine saw me and lifted one hand. "Oh, Mara. You are home early." I did not answer. My eyes were moving from table to table, trying to inventory what had been taken from inside my home. Then I saw the empty space near the end of the driveway. It was a rectangle in the dust where something heavy had been sitting. The handwritten tag was still there. Vintage sewing machine, $40. My throat closed. "Where is it?" I asked. Elaine blinked. "Where is what?" "My grandmother's sewing machine." Blake shifted his weight. He looked at the ground, then at the couple by the craft supplies, then back at me. "Mara, can we not do this in front of everyone?" That told me everything before anyone said it. Elaine gave me a small smile. "Oh honey, nobody uses those old things anymore. A woman bought it maybe 10 minutes ago." She was thrilled. I told her it was vintage but probably more decorative than useful. I stared at her. "You sold my sewing machine." "I sold a bulky old machine that was taking up space," she said. She was still smiling, but her eyes had gone flat. "You two have too much clutter." I was helping. A laugh came out of me. It was not funny. It was the sound a person makes when their body has not decided whether to shout or break down. "You sold something that was mine in my driveway without asking me." Blake lowered his voice. "Mara, please. The neighbors are out." Across the alley, Dennis was pretending to rake the same patch of damp leaves he had been pretending to rake since I pulled up. Dennis was nosy but not mean. He knew everyone's trash pickup habits and had strong feelings about snow emergency parking. At that moment, I did not care if he recorded the whole thing. "Good," I said. "Maybe the neighbors can explain why there is a garage sale at my house that I did not know about." Elaine's smile tightened. It was spontaneous. "Blake said there were old storage bins and things you never used." I looked at Blake. He rubbed the back of his neck. I thought she meant stuff from the basement. I did not know she was going through the guest room. "You are holding the cash box." He looked down at it like it had appeared in his hands by magic. Elaine sighed. "Mara, it is not like I sold your wedding ring." That was when the anger burned through the shock. "No," I said. "You sold something that belonged to my grandmother. Something you had no right to touch." A woman looking at my mixing bowl quietly put it down and walked away. Elaine noticed and gave me a look that said I was embarrassing her. Blake looked like he wanted the driveway to open up and swallow him. I walked to the tables and started picking up my things. The ceramic tray. The fabric squares. The throw blanket. A box of kitchen utensils I had bought at an estate sale. My hands were shaking so badly that spoons clattered onto the table. "The sale is over," I said. Elaine gave a bright, fake little laugh. "Well, I suppose the boss has spoken." I turned to Blake. "Find out who bought the machine." "I do not know who she was." "You took her money." "It was cash. She drove off." "I do not know," he started to say. "Then start remembering," I replied. He did not. That night, we argued in the kitchen next to partially empty takeout containers because neither of us had the energy to cook. The house felt wrong. I kept seeing empty patches where my things had been, like someone had erased pieces of me and expected me to admire the cleaner lines. Blake stood by the fridge rubbing his forehead. I stood barefoot on the cold tile because I had taken my shoes off by habit and then forgotten how to move. "I said I am sorry," he said. "No, you said you are sorry it got out of hand. That is not the same thing. I did not know she took your grandma's machine. But you knew there was a garage sale." He looked away. "Blake. She wanted to help us declutter." "Why?" He opened the fridge, stared inside, then closed it without taking anything out. "Because the house is crowded." "It is not crowded. We have one guest room and a basement with Christmas decorations and a broken vacuum. My mom is going to need space after surgery." The sentence landed so quietly I almost missed it. "What surgery?" "Her knee replacement. We talked about it." "No," I said. "You mentioned she might need help driving for a few days. You did not say she was moving into our house." "She is not moving in. It is just a few weeks." "A few weeks still requires me being asked." His face pinched. "She is my mom. And this is my home." Our home. Then why am I the last person to know what happens inside it? He leaned against the counter and exhaled like I was exhausting him. Can we just not make this a bigger issue? She had a bad day too. You embarrassed her in front of people. I stared at him. She sold my dead grandmother's sewing machine. I know that. But she did not mean it the way you are taking it. There it was again. The old magic trick. Turn the boundary violation into my interpretation of the situation. I slept in the guest room that night. Or I tried to. The room smelled faintly of dust and April air from the window I had cracked earlier. My shelves looked stripped. 3 fabric bins were gone. The desk drawer hung open. Under the window, where the sewing machine had always sat, there was a pale rectangle in the dust. I sat on the edge of the bed until after midnight, staring at that outline. I was not just angry that Elaine had sold the machine. I was angry that a part of me had expected to be talked out of being angry. I could already hear the family version forming around me. Mara is sensitive. Mara does not understand Elaine's love language. Mara made a scene. By Monday morning I had put on mascara, packed my lunch, and decided to act normal until I could think clearly. That lasted until I picked up the mail. Our mailbox was mounted beside the front door, and the stack was damp from the sleet that had blown sideways all afternoon. I carried it inside, kicked my boots onto the mat, and sorted through the usual flyers, a water bill, and a bank statement addressed to Elaine. At our address. Not a package. Not a birthday card. A bank statement. I held it for a long moment, reading her full name above my street number. When Blake got home, I had the envelope on the kitchen table. Why is your mom getting bank mail here? He glanced at it too quickly. Her condo mailboxes are a mess. Stuff goes missing. It is not a big deal. A bank statement is a big deal. She probably changed one account for safety. You know that. I am guessing. Mara, she is 61 and having surgery. Can we not turn every little thing into evidence? The word evidence caught in my mind because of my job. Evidence was what people brought when they wanted to prove a structure existed or did not. Survey drawings, photos, receipts, emails, paper trails people forgot they had left behind. I wanted to believe him. That was the humiliating part. Even after the garage sale, part of me wanted a normal explanation badly enough to stand on one foot and call it balance. The next morning at work, I processed a permit application for a homeowner converting a basement into an accessory living space for an aging parent. The form mentioned laundry access, egress requirements, sleeping areas, and kitchenette limitations. All routine. I had read similar language 100 times, but my eyes snagged on the phrase, basement living area. At the garage sale, Elaine had said the downstairs would be so much more livable once the old junk was gone. Not the basement. Not storage. The downstairs. I read the same line on the permit 4 times until Priya, my coworker, rolled her chair back and looked at me over the divider. You have read that same line 4 times, she said. Priya was 34, dry as toast, and one of the few people I trusted to tell me the truth without decorating it first. She had a toddler, a wife, and a filing system so intense it made city auditors emotional. I lowered my voice. What would you call it if someone was planning construction in your house and forgot to tell you? She did not blink. I would call it not forgetting. At lunch, we sat in the municipal building stairwell because the break room smelled like microwaved fish. I told her about the garage sale, the machine, and the mail. She listened without interrupting, holding a vending machine coffee she had described as hot bean punishment. When I finished, she said, "That is not a misunderstanding. That is a floor plan with your name erased." I do not know that there is a floor plan. Then find out before you warn them you are looking. I do not want to end my marriage. Priya's expression softened, but only a little. Mara, they already crossed a serious line. You are just now seeing the evidence. That evening, after Blake fell asleep on the couch with the sports channel murmuring at low volume, I opened the joint email folder we use for house stuff. Receipts, insurance documents, appliance warranties. I typed basement into the search bar. One result appeared. Subject: Basement Accessibility Walkthrough Confirmation. My hands went cold before I even clicked it. The email was from a local contractor in Maplewood. The appointment was scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. The client name was Blake. Elaine was copied. The notes read, future occupant, Elaine, needs laundry access, sitting area, sleeping area, and possible kitchenette estimate. Discuss grab bars, stair rail, flooring, electrical, and privacy partition. I sat there in the glow of my laptop while Blake snored 10 feet away. Future occupant. Not guest. Not recovery. Occupant. I checked our joint savings account next. We had an emergency fund that we both contributed to. It was not huge, but it was enough to make me feel like one broken furnace would not ruin us. $800 had been withdrawn the week before. Memo? Consult deposit. I remembered asking Blake about the lower balance. He had told me the car insurance renewal hit early. I whispered to the empty kitchen. He did not fail to stop her. He helped her. The last proof came the next morning through the Postal Service's digital delivery preview. I had signed up the previous winter after a package disappeared during a snow emergency and turned up in Dennis's recycling bin. The daily email showed grayscale images of what was coming. There it was. It was an official-looking change of address confirmation addressed to Elaine, forwarding mail from her condo to our house. I did not cry. I thought I would, but I did not. I saved the screenshot, forwarded it to a new private email account, and sat at the kitchen table while the radiator clicked and clicked. For the first time in my marriage, I did not confront Blake immediately. That was not because I felt calm. I was shaking so badly I spilled coffee down the front of my sweater. But I had spent years trying to explain boundaries to people who heard explanation as negotiation. I had told Elaine not to drop by unannounced. I had told Blake his mother folding my laundry bothered me. I had told both of them my guest room was my workspace. Every time I had used too many words and then accepted too little change. This time I got organized. I took screenshots of the contractor email, the bank withdrawal, the postal notice, and texts where Elaine had written things like, "Once I am downstairs I can help with meals," and, "My downstairs area will need softer lighting." I had ignored those texts before because they were wrapped in enough ambiguity to make me feel unreasonable. I made a folder on a flash drive and another in a cloud storage account Blake did not have access to. I photographed the empty spaces in the guest room. I wrote down dates. I checked the cash box and found a page in Elaine's neat handwriting listing items sold, including old sewing machine $40. Then I went across the alley to Dennis. He opened the side door before I knocked. This told me he had been watching through the blinds. "I was wondering when you would come over," he said. "Did you happen to see who bought my sewing machine?" He scratched his gray beard. "Silver SUV. Woman with a red hat. I think she posted in the neighborhood group before. She was talking to Elaine about refinishing furniture. Do you have pictures from the sale?" He looked offended. "I do not take pictures of people." I stared at him. He sighed. "I took one because Elaine put a table halfway into the alley, and I was going to complain if someone blocked my garage." The photo showed the tables, Elaine's fanny pack, Blake with the cash box, and my sewing machine sitting in the corner with that stupid $40 tag on it. "Send it to me," I said. He did. The neighborhood social media group was normally filled with lost cats, snow emergency reminders, and people arguing over whether someone could save a shoveled parking spot with a lawn chair. I searched for vintage sewing machine and found a post from a woman named Holly asking if anyone knew where to buy replacement bobbins for an older model. I messaged her with my heart pounding. "Hi, this is awkward, but I think you may have bought my grandmother's sewing machine from a garage sale at my house on Saturday. It was sold without my permission. I can pay you double what you paid if you would be willing to sell it back." She replied 20 minutes later. Oh wow. I knew something felt off. The older woman kept saying her daughter-in-law was too sentimental and needed to let things go. "You do not need to pay double. I paid $40. If it is yours, come get it." I sat on the bed and covered my mouth. When I picked it up from Holly's porch that evening, she refused the extra money. "Honestly," she said, standing in a fleece jacket with a mug in her hand, "I thought it was weird she kept talking about you." She talked about me? More than once. Like she was trying to convince herself she was right. The machine was scratched on one side from being moved, but it was whole. I buckled it into my passenger seat like a child and drove home slowly through the slush. Blake was in the shower when I got back. I carried the machine into the guest room, then stopped. I did not want it there anymore. Not where Elaine had taken it from. The next day, I called a family law attorney named Marisol. Her office was above a dental clinic near Grand Avenue, and the waiting room had fake plants and a white noise machine that made the hallway sound like a distant ocean. Marisol was about 40, direct, and not interested in revenge fantasies. She let me talk for 12 minutes, then held up one hand. I need dates, amounts, and documents, she said. Not emotions. You can be angry later. Right now, be accurate. I almost laughed because it was exactly what I needed. She told me not to empty joint accounts. She advised me not to lock Blake out of the house without legal advice. She also warned me against sending furious texts that would feel good for 5 minutes and hurt me for 5 months. So what do? I asked. You get organized, she said. Separate your paycheck going forward. Preserve records. Secure your personal property. If you confront them, do it with proof and keep your voice level. If this becomes a divorce, the house is an asset, not a trophy. You are likely looking at a buyout or a sale unless you both agree otherwise. I do not want to lose the house, I said. Her face softened a little. I know, but do not confuse keeping the house with keeping your life. That sentence stayed with me. On Thursday, while Blake was at work, I rented a small storage unit near University Avenue. The hallway smelled like cardboard and cold metal, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I moved my grandmother's sewing machine wrapped in towels, my important documents, jewelry, photo albums, fabric bins, and anything else I could not stand to see on one of Elaine's tables again. I cried only once, which was when I found my grandmother's old tomato-shaped pincushion in a desk drawer. Then I wiped my face with my sleeve and kept packing. For the first time in weeks, my things were safer than my marriage. That night, I told Blake his mom should come for dinner the next day. I said we needed to talk about house decisions. He looked relieved, which hurt more than suspicion would have. Yeah, he said. That is good. I think if everyone just talks calmly, you will see it is not as bad as it feels. Invite her for 6. Elaine arrived at 5:52 on Friday with a tote bag, a knee brace she was not wearing yet, and a folder labeled Mara and Blake house plan in blue marker. That folder almost made me smile. Not because it was funny, but because the arrogance was so complete it had looped around into being absurd. She set it on the kitchen table beside the plates I had not filled. Blake hovered near the fridge, pale and quiet. I brought paint samples, Elaine said, pulling out a strip of warm neutrals from a hardware store. The downstairs gets so little natural light. Soft colors will help. I sat across from her. Downstairs. She gave me a patient look. The basement, Mara. I know you need time to adjust, but once I am here, you will see how much easier it is for everyone. I can help with meals. I can let service people in. And after surgery, I will not be isolated. Blake spoke up. Mom, maybe we should stop. No, I said. Let her finish. Elaine opened the folder. There were contractor brochures, paint samples, a rough sketch of our basement, and a printed list titled Priorities. Laundry access. Sleeping area. Privacy screen. Mini fridge. Possible kitchenette. My name was nowhere except on the folder like a decorative label. I reached into the envelope on my lap and laid the contractor email on the table. Then the bank record. Then the postal change of address screenshot. Then the photo Dennis had taken of the garage sale. The kitchen went still. Blake's face drained first. Elaine reached for the contractor email. I put my hand on it. Do not touch it. She pulled back as if I had startled her. I looked at Blake. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Did you agree to move your mother into our home without my consent? He swallowed. It was not like that. Then explain exactly what it was. He looked at Elaine. Elaine looked annoyed, not frightened. That told me she still thought this was a performance she could manage. Mara, she said. I am sorry you feel excluded, but adults make practical decisions when health is involved. Family does not need contracts. Surgery recovery is not the issue, I said. Lying is the issue. Using joint money is the issue. Selling my belongings is the issue. Treating my home like a vacancy is the issue. Blake rubbed his forehead. I was going to tell you after we had more details. You had enough details to pay a deposit. It came from our emergency fund. Exactly. Our emergency fund. Elaine's mouth tightened. It was a consultation. You are acting like we built a whole apartment behind your back. You forwarded your mail here. She hesitated for a split second. It was not long, but it was enough. That was for convenience. Your bank. Your physical therapy packet. Your change of address. That is not convenience. That is residency paperwork with better manners. Blake winced. Elaine's eyes flashed. This is my son's house too, she said. The old Mara would have explained down payment percentages, mortgage contributions, the weekends I spent sanding cabinets, and the difference between ownership and entitlement. The old Mara would have tried to make her understand. I was done auditioning for basic respect. Then he can decide if he wants to be married in it, I said. Blake looked at me like I had finally become the unreasonable woman he had been warning himself about. You are making me choose, he said. My heart ached. Even then, even after everything, I wanted him to say the right thing. I wanted him to turn to his mother and say we handled this wrong. I wanted some version of my husband to show up at the table. He did not. I cannot abandon my mom, he said. She is having surgery. She needs me. I am not asking why your mom needs help, I said. I am asking why I was the last person to know she was moving into my house. Because you react like this. There it was. The final little door closing. I nodded slowly. No. Elaine forced the choice. You made it every time you stayed silent. Elaine gave a sharp laugh. So what, you are forcing me out because of a few boxes and an old sewing machine? You have a condo. You had enough planning time to find contractors and forward mail. You are not without a home. And my sewing machine is back. Her face changed. That got her. You tracked down a stranger over that thing? Yes. I also have her message offering to write a statement about how you sold it. Blake looked at me. A statement? Mara, come on. You are embarrassing me. No, I said. I am refusing to be the quiet part of your plan. I told them I had spoken to an attorney. I told them my direct deposit had been changed. I told them my personal property was no longer available for anyone's version of decluttering. Elaine would not move in while I owned part of the house. If Blake wanted to create a home with his mother, he could buy me out or we could sell through the proper legal process. Elaine stared at me like I had started speaking another language. You would break up your marriage over this? I looked at Blake. No. I would end a marriage where my husband made room for his mother by erasing me. He left that night with a duffel bag and the expression of a man who still believed I would call him before he reached the freeway. Elaine followed him out, stiff-backed, carrying her folder like evidence of her own injury. I locked the door behind them and leaned my forehead against it. Then I cried. It was not pretty crying. It was not cinematic. I slid down onto the entryway rug with my knees pulled to my chest while the radiator hissed and my phone buzzed on the floor beside me. The family group chat had started. Elaine, I hope everyone understands Mara has decided I am not welcome to recover after surgery. Aunt Carol, oh no. Mara, is that true? Cousin Ryan. That is cold. Blake, please do not pile on. We are handling it. I stared at the messages until the screen blurred. Then I sent one reply. Me. Elaine planned to move into our basement permanently without my consent. Blake used joint emergency savings for the contractor deposit. Elaine sold my belongings, including my grandmother's sewing machine, to make room. I have documentation. I will not discuss it further in a group chat. Nobody responded for 12 minutes. Then Blake texted me privately. Blake, why would you say all that? Me? Because it is true. Blake, you made my mom look awful. Me, she did that. I just added dates. After that, I muted the thread. The fallout was not dramatic in the way people online seem to want it to be. There was no legal drama. There was no internet scandal. There was no judge in a courtroom demanding confessions. It was slower and uglier than that. Blake moved into Elaine's condo temporarily. This turned out to be a problem because Elaine had already found a tenant and promised the condo would be available the next month. The tenant backed out when the timeline collapsed, and Elaine lost part of the deposit she had paid the contractor because the consult window passed, and she tried to blame me for creating instability. Dennis, bless his nosy heart, became an accidental witness for the neighborhood. When Elaine told a woman 3 houses down that I had turned away family during a medical crisis, Dennis corrected her while taking his trash bins in. "That is not what happened," he said, loud enough for half the alley. "She sold Mara's grandma's sewing machine right out of the driveway. I saw it." By the next weekend, 2 neighbors who had bought things at the garage sale messaged me asking if they should return them. One woman brought back my mixing bowl with banana bread inside it, and looked so embarrassed that I ended up comforting her on my own porch. Holly, the woman who bought the sewing machine, sent me another message. "If you need me to confirm anything, I will. That whole thing was wrong. I saved it with the rest." 2 weeks later, Blake asked to come over and talk. I agreed, but only at the coffee shop near our house, not inside. I had learned that location matters. Some places make it too easy to slip into old roles. He looked tired. His beard was patchy, and he kept turning his wedding ring around his finger. "I handled it badly," he said. "I waited. I should have told you sooner. That is not the same as saying you should have asked me." He looked down at his coffee. "Okay, I should have asked you." It sounded like a sentence he had practiced, not one he understood. "What boundary have you set with your mother?" I asked. He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what have you told her will not happen again? What consequences did you set?" He sighed. "I think we should all sit down and talk." Reset. There were assumptions on both sides. I felt something inside me go very quiet. "That is my answer," I said. "Mara," he pleaded. "You still think the problem is that we did not communicate well enough," I interrupted. "The problem is that you lied, used our money, and helped your mother plan a life inside my home without me. Then when I found out, you said I was making you choose." His eyes filled with tears, and that hurt too because Blake was not a terrible person. That might have been the hardest part. He was funny when he was relaxed. He remembered how I liked my coffee. He shoveled the elderly neighbor's walk without being asked. He also folded under his mother's pressure so consistently that loving him meant disappearing one compromise at a time. "I do not want a divorce," he said. "I know," I said. "You wanted a wife who would absorb the unfairness and call it peace. I cannot be that anymore." I filed the next week. The legal process was not clean or fast, but it was clear. Marisol kept me grounded. The house was valued. Numbers were exchanged. The missing emergency fund money did not become the grand courtroom moment my angriest self fantasized about, but it mattered in the settlement. I was reimbursed for part of it, along with several other expenses Blake had tried to wave away as family matters. We sold the house in late summer. On the last day, I walked through each room alone. The kitchen cabinets were still my soft green. The guest room had empty walls. The basement smelled like laundry soap and concrete, not warm neutrals and entitlement. I stood at the back door and looked at the shovel still propped there, even though it was August. I thought I would feel only grief. I did feel grief, but underneath it was something steadier. Relief. Blake moved into a rental not far from Elaine. Elaine continued telling relatives that I broke up the family. Some believed her and some did not. Aunt Carol sent me a private message one evening that just said, "I did not know all of it. I am sorry. It was not everything, but it was something." I rented a sunny one-bedroom apartment near the Mississippi River with radiator heat, crooked windows, and a tiny kitchen I could clean in 15 minutes. The first night there, I ate cereal for dinner sitting on the floor because my table had not arrived yet. A barge horn sounded somewhere in the dark, low and steady. For the first time in months, nobody used a key in my door without permission. My grandmother's sewing machine sits under the living room window now. It still has the scratch from the garage sale, a thin pale line along the side. I thought about trying to buff it out, but I left it. Not as a wound, but more like a receipt. I started taking small sewing jobs again. Hems, pillow covers, and a zipper replacement for Priya's wife's coat. Nothing big. Sometimes, on quiet nights, the machine hums while the radiator knocks and the river traffic moves beyond the glass. The sound reminds me of my grandmother's hands over mine, telling me not to rush. I do not hate Blake. I do not even hate Elaine, though I do not wish her access to me in any form. Hate would require me to keep them closer than I want. What I understand now is simple, and it cost me a house to learn it properly. A boundary is not a speech, a plea, or a perfectly worded text. A boundary is what you do after someone ignores the speech. For years, I thought being difficult was the worst thing a woman could be in a family. I was wrong. The worst thing was being so easy to live around that people forgot I lived there too. Now I lock my own door. I label my leftovers. I keep my snow shovel by the back door even when spring is pretending to arrive. And when the sewing machine starts up under the window, old and steady and stubborn, I remember that something can be worn, scratched, and underestimated, and still work beautifully when nobody is trying to use it against you. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.